Chapter 32 Reckoning. Salazar returned to the tavern and found Godric and Rowena waiting. He told them what he had learned, that Merwin planned to use his new curse at midnight on New Year's Eve. He described the details with a clarity that made them all understand the scope of what was coming, the range, the finality. Rowena listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. He must be stopped, she said finally. At all costs, because he doesn't understand the consequences of his own actions, Rowena said. He's blinded by hate and a broken soul. She looked to Godric. This is no longer about malice. This is about survival, our survival. Godric met her gaze. Then you know what must be done, she finished. Salazar looked between them. What must be done? Rowena took Salazar's hand. Your friend is lost and cannot be saved. He means to destroy the Muggles, but will destroy everything, and believes he is righteous for it. She paused. I understand what we must do, Salazar said quietly. I will go with Godric. Godric gave him a nod, grabbed his sword, and left the tavern. Salazar followed him out into the night. The darkness was complete. The only light came from Merwin's house in the distance, a candle in a window, a door left open. Godric peeked through the doorway and saw Merwin's wife sitting by the hearth, holding her swollen belly, a fur wrapped around her shoulders. He left, she said when she saw them. He's gone. Where? Godric asked. She wouldn't look at him. Salazar laid his hand on Godric's shoulder and pointed. Away from the house, up past the last building before the road climbed toward the foothill, a figure stood in the center of the road, wand at his side. What is he doing? Salazar said to himself. He wants a fight, Godric answered. They walked from the house toward the foothill road where Merwin stood waiting. As they approached, he spoke, his voice confused and certain at once. You can't stop me, Salazar, Merwin said. This is my destiny. This is a gift to wizard kind. Salazar could see Merwin's stance shift, preparing. You cannot do this, Merwin. Merwin lifted his wand, and flames shot toward them, transforming as they moved down the street into a flock of birds on fire, sharp-edged and vicious. Godric threw a shield charm, but a firebird came around it and hit him in the back. Salazar yelled Aquamenta, and water shot from his wand, forcing the remaining birds to dissolve to steam. Godric was knocked to the ground, but was back on his feet almost instantly. He shot a volley of red bolts of light. Merwin blocked all but the last one, which sent him falling backward onto his knees. He raised his wand at Godric and yelled, Avada Kedavra! Godric was already levitating a stone the size of a hippogriff. He floated it in front of himself and Salazar just as the killing curse hit. The stone exploded into pieces, sending dust and rock flying in all directions. Get under cover, Godric said to Salazar. You can't block the green ones with magic. They kill. Salazar nodded and ducked behind a stone wall. I know. Godric shot 2 more red bolts toward Merwin, but lost sight of him. Bombardo Maxima! The spell came from somewhere Salazar couldn't place, and then Merwin was there. The wall Salazar hid behind exploded and sent Salazar backward, landing a few feet from where Merwin hid. Merwin began muttering an incantation. Stones fell around Salazar's body, then began to pile on top of him, heavier and heavier, covering him completely. Salazar couldn't move, could hardly breathe. Then a red blast of light hit Merwin from the side. Godric jumped at Merwin with his wand ready, but Merwin cast a spell that spun him upside down, floating as if suspended by an invisible rope tied around his ankles. Godric's sword fell to the ground with a loud clang. Expelliarmus, Merwin said, and Godric's wand dropped as well. Merwin raised his wand directly at Godric's head. Avada! A blue flash hit Merwin. Rowena's voice came from near the tavern, yelling, You must stop this madness, Merwin. Merwin was knocked backward, but slowly got to his feet. Merwin looked at Rowena, who was getting ready to cast another charm. Godric had fallen to the ground and was scrambling for his weapons. Merwin raised both his hands, clasped together above his head, and threw them down toward the earth. Bolts of light shot outward in all directions, hitting all 3 of them. Rowena and Godric went down. Salazar, still trapped under the stones, winced in pain, only his head uncovered. Merwin dropped to one knee. The magic was taking its toll. Salazar looked to Godric, who was barely moving, his eyes closed. Merwin rose and began walking toward Godric slowly. Godric got to his knees. Salazar was still bound by the stones. Salazar began to whisper and hiss, but felt his voice leave him as he watched Merwin point his wand at him. Merwin put a finger to his lips, a signal to Salazar to be quiet. Merwin stood over Godric, who was on all 4s. It didn't have to be this way, he said. We were on the same side of the battle. Merwin raised his wand toward Godric. Then Merwin's whole body lifted off the ground, flipped upside down, and his wand fell from his hand. Helga Hufflepuff held her wand aloft, holding Merwin suspended in the air. Godric got to his feet, his sword in hand. Salazar felt the stones binding him loosen and pulled himself free. Merwin pulled himself into a curled position while floating, then, in a violent burst of anger and raw magic, flung himself open. A burst of energy shot outward. He crashed to the ground as Helga lost her grip on him. Godric had kept his feet. Salazar felt his voice return and began summoning snakes. Every snake he could call. Merwin looked to Salazar, unable to stop him, as snakes began to bite at his legs. Merwin turned around in fear. He was face to face with Godric. Before he could speak, before a single word, Godric ran his sword through Merwin's sternum and out through his back. The two looked each other in the eyes. Godric pulled his sword free and backed away. Snakes began to cover Merwin's body. Countless snakes covered him entirely. Rowena reached them and joined the other three as all the snakes left Merwin's lifeless body lying in the grass. Salazar looked toward the house. Merwin's wife stood in the doorway, watching the four who had just killed her husband. She looked down. "It's over," she said. Years passed. The widow of Merwin never left the village. Her daughter, now 4 years old, was finally living a safe and happy life. The village thrived. One evening, as darkness fell, there was a visitor at the door. The widow opened it to find Rowena Ravenclaw standing there. She accepted Rowena into her home, but remained cold. She had never forgotten Rowena's role in her husband's death, despite the life the four had built for their village. Rowena told her she had experienced a vision, a prophecy. She wished to share it and record it with her. Rowena pulled a glass ball from her robes. It was clear and empty. She sat at the table and entered a trance, her eyes closing. A voice that was not only her own began to speak. The glass orb filled with blue-silver smoke that swirled inside it like something alive. Rowena's eyes popped open. She pulled her wand and held it to her temple. Slowly, she drew it away, and a silvery, glowing strand-like substance separated from her temple, hanging from the tip of her wand. She guided the strand to the orb and let it fall. It dissolved right into the glass.